Good afternoon. I guess as always, or as customary, I'll start with a quick assessment of our last performance, wrapping the bow around yesterday. As I said after the game, and I was just really appreciative of the group's ability to focus and perform and deliver. Sometimes the last week of the season presents some challenges, some distractions and things going on inside your stadium, things going on outside your stadium. And I just thought largely our group did a really good job of kind of managing the speculation and all of those things, those variables, some within our control, some outside of our control all week in prep and even in play leading up to the game and doing what was required to secure victory. In terms of the game, I thought it was important that we win the line of scrimmage, that we work to minimize their run game and how they control games through their run game. I thought largely we were able to do that. I thought a component of doing that was being able to do it ourselves and possessing the ball and playing behind our run game and Najee and so forth. And I thought we were largely able to do that. Making some splash plays obviously was required. I thought some of the third down conversions offensively, particularly late, were significant. We took the ball away some on defense, also significant. I thought we were able to stay after Watson, man, and he is a big challenge in terms of his mobility and how he extends plays and the things he's able to do. Being in the stadium as a divisional team against him for the first time, I thought that was going to be a big component of play. And so we were able to get some things done to secure victory, and I'm thankful for that. Larger picture, obviously, man, it comes to a screeching halt. It does for us. It does for a lot of others. I asked my team to be singularly focused, and I'm willing to live that out. I stand before you today with a kind of lack of preparedness for this. To be quite honest with you, I was preparing to prepare to play a game. And so I'll acknowledge a couple things that is going on this week, things that needs to transpire, necessary business this time of year and so forth, and tee it up and open some questions up. We'll meet this afternoon with our team at 2 o'clock, talk about some end of the year things and acknowledge some calendar related things moving forward. Exit interviews and exit physicals are a component of those things. It's important that we do a really good job of wrapping a bow around what is the 2022 season. It's some physical work to be done. It's some, planning to be done individually, collectively. Players need to meet with positional coaches, coordinators, myself, strength coaches, trainers. There's a process. And the attention that we give the journey, we need to give the exit process. In a lot of ways, it tees up the beginning of 2023, particularly if someone needs some medical work done. It's better to sooner address that than later, to do a good job of making sure that we're addressing any ongoing medical issues that people might be dealing with. It's important to get a snapshot evaluation of what's transpired with them, give them a window of maybe what might lie ahead and the work that might be required of them in an effort to get better. Those are some of the things that'll be going on. We'll be doing similar things as a staff. I'll always put the players in front of the staffing in terms of meetings and evaluations. But there are a lot of ongoing necessary business things this time of year. I'm really just starting to sink my teeth into it. As again, I mentioned, we're singularly focused. We don't prepare for failure. And so we'll proceed methodically through this. We'll probably move a little slower than most of our peers, but we don't worry about the Joneses. We got a business model, one that we believe in, and we'll be thorough in doing so and assessing what transpired in an effort to tee up our next opportunity, and at the appropriate time, we'll start working that area. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, when you look at the Baltimore game and Cleveland game, you minimized their rush and you outrushed them. What does that say about your desire for the way you want to play?
I just think that that's kind of a snapshot of NFL football, particularly in the waning weeks of the season. Weather becomes a factor and things of that nature. But it's also got something to do with the matchup of the teams and how the teams come together and their agenda relative to our agenda. Those two teams that you mentioned, they play behind their run game. And so if you want to beat them the latter portions of the year, you better minimize it, and a major component of minimizing it is possessing it yourself. And so it's very true in those instances, but it's also true in a larger sense in terms of time of year and, playing to our strengths and our makeups and our makeup at that particular time.
Like philosophically, were you guys a little conservative by design due to relative uncertainty with your skill position people? And would the next step to more splash be a little more putting the pedal down?
Succinctly, yes. You guys know that I'm a fundamentalist. When I got red paint, I paint my barn red as a coaching cliche. What you saw from us was what was appropriate, particularly over the second half of the year in an effort to engineer victory. As we move forward, man, we're continually trying to get better in all areas. And how does that shape and affect your personality? It does. It does in all three phases. It does individually and in totality. But it's our job as coaches to do what's required to engineer victory, particularly over the latter half of the year. And we did what we did to engineer victory.
Mike, you just mentioned at the end. How would you evaluate the job Matt Canada did, and do you expect him to be back next year?
I thought he got better, just like our team got better. I'm not going to speculate about him or anyone as I stand here today. As I mentioned, we fight, and that fight has come to an end. I'm just beginning the process of transitioning in terms of wrapping a bow around it and seeing what 2023 looks like. And so I'm just not there. We got some work to do, but largely I thought he got better in the ways that we got better, and so it was encouraging.
Mike, when you do go into these off-season evaluation and exit meetings and you're talking to Kenny Pickett, how much does his opinion and his experience do you expect to factor into decisions with coaching staff like Matt Canada? I'm
not going to delve into the dynamics of my decision-making. It doesn't serve me or us in any way to peel back that curtain. I have intimate conversations with everyone. Obviously, Kenny being our quarterback, that's going to happen. But the nature and the details of those conversations and how that leads to decision-making will never be discussed in a forum like this.
Mike, you just mentioned at the end of your opening comments about the business model that you guys believe in. The guys that you're doing business with have changed. This is your first full off season without Kevin, with Omar, with Sheldon, and with Andy. So when it comes to a lot of the guys that you've got that are in their late 20s that are kind of going to the end of their deals, are you looking to keep as many of those guys as possible and build on these last 9 games, or is that an opportunity to reface the roster, so to speak?
Again, we've had zero conversations about how we move forward. We acknowledge that those conversations will be transpiring, and some of them rather quickly because some of them are time sensitive. But to this point, zero conversations in that regard have been had, and that's a signature of how we do business, and that's probably why we're able to have the type of focus that's necessary to finish the way we finished this year, because we are not distracted by BS that lies ahead. We are singularly focused about opponents that we're dealing with in the games that are in front of us. And now we transition to some of those discussions, but I don't have enough information or clarity in any of those discussions to kind of provide the answers that you're looking for.
Mike, anecdotally, when you have a season that's there's such a split in terms of results from the first half to the second half, when you're evaluating the season, do you place more weight on what happens at the end, regardless of whether it's good or bad?
I evaluate everything. I just think that, there's going to be a start to next season. And so, if the start was not what you liked or wanted, you better evaluate that. And so I'll evaluate the season in totality. I'll evaluate components of the season, team development, how we managed the team through the season from a physical work standpoint, from an intellectual work standpoint, the rate in which we introduce, schematic things, growth and development. And so there's just a lot of discussions to be had. Just rest assured that it will be evaluated in totality, but it'll also be broken down into smaller pieces and evaluated in that way, because that is equally as necessary.
Mike, you said last offseason you were excited about having some uncertainty with the quarterback position. It seems like you found some certainty. What are you looking forward to about the next step in that process?
Growth. You guys know here in Pittsburgh, man, we value the growth that has a potential to happen between year one and year two. It's natural. They're no longer speculating about what this is. They've had a lap around the track. They've been in some hot situations. They've had some positive results. They've had some negative results. They understand the totality of this in terms of the toll that it takes on them mentally, physically, emotionally. I think all of those things that encompass the experience that is the rookie season is a good springboard to get better and to obviously do it with a quarterback. Man, I'm really excited about that.
From a big picture perspective, how do you evaluate just your rookie class as a whole, and how strong are those building blocks that they've set to go into the offseason and next year?
You know, a lot of guys had an opportunity to have roles and increasingly significant roles, and I'm thankful for their contributions, but I'm just beginning the process of kind of going through it with a fine-tooth comb and assessing it in that way in terms of building their challenges individually for year two for them. But I will acknowledge, man, we got some quality play from some young guys, which is exciting. But boy, there's a lot of meat on the bone, and we're excited about being a part of their process too. That's another component of our business model that we don't run away from. We run to the development of players. To be a component of their growth and development is significant for us and for them.
How important is this first off season that all of your rookies will have?
Huge, but that's not the first time you guys have heard me say that.
Is there any, Pat Fryermuth, I know it's been a day, is there any update or any clarity?
I think it can be characterized as a MCL sprain, non-surgical, and so that's exciting for him.
Mike, did you guys become more opponent-specific with the defensive game plans? If so, how much was Flores a part of that, and how did that go just with him this year?
You talking about over the course of the year?
Yeah.
I think it's a natural thing that you're more specific, opponent-specific, division of labor specific as the season goes on. I just think with each passing week, you have more information. You have more information about yourselves and what you're capable of. You have more tangible information. There's less speculation about the personnel or the other people that you face and how they're utilizing it. I just think that that's, in general, something that happens in all three phases over the course of the season. In terms of Brian's contributions, man, it was significant throughout, but we get significant contributions from a lot of assistants. Pat Meyer's contributions were significant throughout in terms of offensive game planning. And so, I don't know what you mean by that.
Mike, moving forward, do you feel like Kenny Pickett is the franchise quarterback?
I don't know what you guys mean by franchise quarterback. Is he our QB1? Yes. But there's a lot of silly responsibility that comes with that term. Everybody thinks they got one, but not everybody has one and all of that. He's our starting quarterback. I'm not going to saddle him with that cliche that's overused in our game and our business too much these days.
Mike, you've been bullish on Devin most of the year, but his participation dropped significantly the last couple of weeks. Was any of that health related, or were you rewarding the other guys, or did Devin just maybe not meet the standard you were looking for?
Not health related, really game specific related. As we were talking earlier about the nature of play of those two teams that we played down the stretch specifically, it warranted us to do some things in terms of the division of labor that minimize some of his opportunities to contribute. But we make those decisions week in and week out in a lot of areas. It's just football. It's trying to engineer victory.
How do you anticipate the quarterback room kind of shaping up behind Kenny, given that Mitch and Mason are two relatively young guys who still want a chance to be starters in this league?
Mitch is under contract. Rudolph is scheduled for free agency. Man, we'll see what happens.
I know you still need to do your evaluation of things, but as far as you know now, that your staff, has anybody indicated they are retiring or leaving or they're coming back in that point?
I've already received a request for Brian Flores, but there have not been any, significant conversations among the staff about that. As I mentioned, we're singularly professionally focused. We acknowledge where we are this morning, but prior to this morning, we're trying to win football games and maybe prepare for another one.
Mike, who was the request from?
I'm not going to get into that. I'm sure you guys will have that information sooner rather than later. It's on the street.
Can you specify whether that's for a head coaching job?
No, coordinator position.
Okay.
Mike, you saw, obviously, we saw the skill level of George Pickett's. Where did you see him from a maturity, character development as a season went on?
I think he progressed in the ways that most of the rookies progress. I just think it's a natural thing when you're a young guy and you get put into a professional environment around grown men that you grow at a rapid rate. I saw that from him. I thought the consistency of his play and his productivity kind of represented that growth. But it's a really natural thing. I sometimes get resistant when I get asked about his maturity and character-related things because oftentimes I believe he got mischaracterized pre-draft. And so that's why I'm combative at times and defensive when it comes to him. He's a quality young man. He is. He's professional. He's been really consistent in his work throughout. He loves football. He likes to work. We haven't seen a lot of things that we hear rumors regarding in terms of him, and that's why we defend him.
Mike, I asked that because he mentioned that yesterday after the game, being mischaracterized, the whole thing, how he feels he had to fight through.
And that's business, unfortunately, particularly at this level. But sometimes, particularly when they're young, they don't do a good job of managing it, and it could affect their growth and development. And when you're in my position, you better fight to defend that, and that's why I do. Thankfully, he's got a thick skin, and he's a tough-minded kid, and it had very little bearing on his day-to-day and the spirit in which he played and all of those things.
Outside of quarterback, are there any positions, based off of the performance over the course of the season, that you feel like it's a strength going into next season?
I'm not going to get into that bold predictions that, guys got to wear months from now. I'm just appreciative of the efforts of our guys. I'm disappointed that we're not working this week, and, I'm committed to being better moving forward.
Mike, how do you assess Najee's performance, and do you feel like the injury maybe in camp slowed him down early in the season, or was it just a progression with the line play?
Certainly the missed time in team development slowed him down. I don't know that he played in any preseason games and things of that nature. He's a young guy. The skill relative to his position needs to be developed and honed in an effort to be game ready. And so he got on a moving train. That was well documented. I thought he got better with each passing day. He's a mentally tough guy. He's a competitor. And so I just thought his play got consistently better throughout, but I also kind of expected it to based on those reasonable variables and circumstances.
Did William Jackson have an injury after he got here? Is the same injury he had before? And how do you kind of evaluate? Can he have a place going forward?
To be honest, I don't have a lot of detail, man. I think he was on the field one day. There's a lot going on that day. I don't know how much direct eyes I laid on him. I don't have a lot of information in that regard. I don't.
Mike, after the game, Cam Hayward said something quizzical about if they want me back. Is there any reason we should be concerned or think that you guys would not?
Cam is the same type of guy that will put a tape job with his last name on the front of his helmet in a training camp like setting. That's what makes him who he is. He takes none of this for granted, and that's just an expression of that. Just like when he puts his last name on his helmet in a training camp like setting. He is special because he has a special approach, because he is legitimately humble and hardworking, and he takes none of this for granted. And so that's probably what that was.
Mike, when it comes to Najee's leadership, everything off the field with him, how did you see him grow in those types of areas?
process as well?
In natural ways, in all areas, but that's a reasonable expectation in a guy from year 1 to year 2. But it's also speaks to who he is that he got elected captain in year 2. And I think that with each passing day, he wore that in a more natural way. I think he always had a desire to do that and be what his team and his teammates needed him to be. But I think with each passing day, I think he just wore it in a more natural way, and I think it's reasonable to expect it to continue.
Mike, you mentioned it. Deontay, just how did you see him grow and respond to some of the adversity that came his way throughout the season?
In the same ways that he's done throughout his time here. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about that we have a desire to be a part of the growth and development of players. We draft guys, we research guys, we draft guys. They play for us, they develop why they play for us. Guys like Deontay, Alex Highsmith, and others are kind of examples of that. They've continually gotten better.
Mike, you mentioned his name briefly. What did Pat Meyer bring to your offensive line?
He's a good communicator, good teacher. He challenges the guys. He does all the things that you want a guy in that space to do, formally and informally, in terms of the growth and development of an individual and a collective. He's been really solid. I'll tell you this, probably the most significant thing about the development of our offensive line is the availability of that group. The continuity required to grow is a major component of it, and we're thankful that not only we had really good, consistent in-game performance for that group, but just practice availability and consistency in that area from that group. And it starts first with availability and then the work, and he did a good job shepherding that work.
Mike, you mentioned earlier how you ran your offense was appropriate because of the young personnel. Is it tricky to evaluate a coordinator when maybe he, wanted his offense to look one way and he wasn't comfortable doing it another way? How do you evaluate that?
I'm paid to do tricky. It's all tricky. It's all layers to this. It's not checkers, it's chess. And so it's just life in our business.
The O-line starting every single game together this year, does that make it easier to evaluate their work, or does it make it more difficult because you didn't see it with different pieces in there for next season?
Again, I'm not going to hate the fact that we had consistent availability in the offensive line. I think they grew individually and collectively at an increased rate because of that. And so where that leads us moving forward, hopefully it is a springboard in terms of what transpires. The negative consequences are maybe some of the backups that you have. You didn't get an in-game evaluation on, but you do have an evaluation of their day-to-day, their preparedness, their professionalism, and so that's just life in the business.
Mike, last year you talked about enjoying being uncomfortable in the off season, about how different it was than other ones. What does it feel like? How different is the feeling going into this one, knowing that there's more continuity maybe than losing a GM and a longtime quarterback?
I'm only a couple hours into it. I have no idea. Like I said, when I got out of bed this morning, I just had to come to the grips with the fact that I wasn't preparing a game plan today. So those things will kind of be revealed to me in a more tangible way, probably over the next couple of days as I start to look at calendars and begin the exit interview process and those type of things that are kind of encompassed this time of year.
What is this day like for you? Are you down a little? I mean, you prepare for 12 months and all of a sudden it's over?
I don't spend any time focusing on what it's like for me, man. There's so many people that need things from me on a day like today, man. A rookie needs some clarity about what happens next. A free agent needs some clarity, the medical clarity that needs to transpire. Dominoes fall in the coaching profession, and so there's a lot that's needed from guys like me on a day like today. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about my issues.
Mike, you touched on this a bit before, but when we would ask you about turning around a season like 2-6, you would say that's my experience, that's not necessarily theirs. Now it is their experience after doing it. What do you think the benefit is going to be for a young core moving forward of the way that they finish the season?
Hopefully the benefit is not to get yourself in those circumstances. But again, those are things to be pondered as we wrap a bow around it and things of that nature and start our planning. Just hadn't given it a lot of thought. Obviously, there's some benefit to being a part of something, smiling in the face of adversity and growing and pushing through some difficult times and having your back against the wall professionally. There's growth there for sure. What it means and all of that, we'll get to it.
It's one of those things to be pondered, and I know like this year is very different because of some of the things that Brooke mentioned, the coaching changes, front office changes, quarterback changes. Does that prevent you from sort of having a through line to see what has prevented you guys from being at a point where you are still working deep into January?
What are you asking?
I'm asking if this year gets in the way of that evaluation because there was so many changes.
There are changes and complexities to the evaluation process every year. It really is. It just is. There's big time urgency every year. This is a now business. There's changes every year, players, coaches, etc. Nothing stays the same. Even those that remain, their roles change, they evolve. People ascend, people descend. It's always different.
Mike, what do you tell your guys about what they need to do in the offseason to come back ready and kind of build off this year?
I do it in a really individual way, based on a lot of variables and circumstances, experience or lack thereof, how much they played. Even you can go as specific as to how many snaps they play, being the framework of how much rest they get before they get back to training, for example. And so if you're a practice squatter, man, you're right back at it probably next week. If you played 1,000 snaps, obviously you're not. And so it's a very individual thing. And it should be. This is professional football.
I don't know that we asked you much about Boswell this year. I think just kind of a down year for him. Was some of it situational? Is there any concern with it?
I haven't begun to assess it in that way yet. I'm sure that I will and he will. We acknowledge, and I acknowledge, that the ball didn't go through the upright at times and largely as much as we would like it to.
I think last month, you called it like a little silly sidebar or something about the non-losing season streak that you've had. You never had a losing season. Does it mean something, A, now that you've done it, can you expand on it more? And that your players seem to be real open that they wanted to keep that going for you.
It was probably more important to them as a subject matter, obviously, than it was to me. I'm appreciative of that. The relationship that I have with them that makes it important to them. But, my agenda is getting in the single elimination tournament and pursuing the confetti game and winning it. And that agenda will never change. The totality of past experiences and stuff, man, I just, I'm a competitor. I like to compete continually. I love the challenges that this game and this job provides, and so I'm wired in that way, and so I've spent a little time kind of assessing the totality of things, particularly if it doesn't light a fire under me, if I can't utilize it as fuel in an effort to be ready for the adversity that awaits. And so, talking about accolades and trivial things and streaks and things of that nature, if it's not useful to me in terms of assessing our next battles, then I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it or focusing on it.
Two more.
Now, when you saw the way Pickett played the rest of the season, I know you probably don't want to look back in the rear view or whatever, but would you maybe been able to play at the beginning of the season? You kind of wish maybe you would have had the extra 4 games of experience?
I think that his development is a process, and we've said throughout, I thought his development took off once he started getting into stadiums in the preseason, and so there was a process there. He was playing in the third groups, he was playing in the second groups, and we gave him some first group exposure. Preseason football is different than regular season football, let's be honest. And so, he bided his time and worked in the regular season football environment, and when he had an opportunity, when it presented himself, he showed he belonged, and he continued to get better in that space. And so as I look back at it, I don't know that I have any second thoughts or regrets about the process or how it transpired as I sit here right now. Maybe I'll think differently as I analyze it in an end-of-season kind of way in the upcoming weeks, but knee-jerk reaction to your question, no, I don't have any regrets about it as I stand here this morning.
Mike, you just talked about competition and all of that lighting a fire under you to kind of keep going. Do you still feel that same competitive fire and everything going? I know you just finished the season. Going into this off season, Do you still feel that same motivation and fire?
More so, increasingly so.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.